Welcome, and let's get started studying all the temples in the scriptures. Now, the purpose of tonight's webinar, we're going to provide training for Logos Bible software. We're going to provide training so you can study the topic for yourself. We're going to provide biblical insights related to the topic, if it's appropriate, when appropriate. At times, it's going to feel fast-paced. We are trying to include a lot of information to increase the training value so you can watch and rewind later. Training at times is complex with multiple steps. Other times, training will be easy to follow along with few steps, so don't be discouraged if you can't keep up. All webinars are recorded for purchase and review offline, and the presenter notes that I'll be walking you through tonight are included as a personal book for Logos. Our next two upcoming webinars is going to be How to Study Biblical Prophecy. That'll be next Thursday. And then, who are the Nephilim and the Raphaim? Yes, we're getting into that very controversial passage, Genesis 6, as well as what follows afterwards. So that'll be a fun topic as well to study. All right, let's jump back into Logos now, and let's take a closer look at the personal book. As you can see, we've got 12 topics here. We're in the introduction. We'll talk about why this topic will identify the temples in the Bible chronologically and theologically. We'll walk through two key tools for searching for temples and specialized comparison search. We're going to look at Logos tools for organizing your research, Logos resources to support your study. We're going to help you create a temple study layout in Logos. We're going to we covered this last time, but I thought it was so helpful I bring it back in again. 10 steps for studying temples theologically. When encountering temple passages, what to observe. Some interpretation warnings, some Logos AI search suggestions and examples, and then, of course, as you know, I always like to bring in the public AI prompts that you can use to take your studying even further. All right, so let's get started, and why this topic? Understanding the temple passages helps unify the entire Bible storyline. That's right. It's one of those overarching themes throughout the scriptures. From Eden to the New Jerusalem, God progressively reveals his intention to dwell with his people. Each temple provides insight into the character of God and how sinful and saved man may or may not approach God. And this is one of those topics that, like I said, covers from Genesis to Revelation. Very amazing. Now, how do we identify the temples in the Bible? Now, in my table of contents, I've identified basically 10, and I give an 11th for pagan temples. So let me overview this list to expand your horizon in thinking about what is a temple and where to find it in the scriptures. And then we'll get into key verses, specialized searches, etc. So the first one is the heavenly temple. And this is either pre-creation or at the beginning of creation. I can't be definitive here, but the reason I would say no later than at creation is because by the end of the sixth day, God has created all things. And the question that we can't ascertain from the scriptures is whether the temple of God existed before there were angels, before there was man. But if either way, we know that by the time Adam is created, by the seventh day, God is rested, we know there was a heavenly temple. And then there's the Garden of Eden, which you may not have looked at this as a temple, but it really is, and we'll explain why as we get there. Then, of course, the traditional tabernacle that was built to be moving around and to be a place for God to reside with God's people. Certainly there's there. And then David preparing for Solomon and Solomon building the temple, which was amazing. And then, of course, as you know, Israel sinned, rebelled. God hauled them all the way to the Assyrians and then eventually the Babylonians. And with that, the temple was destroyed. So when the 70-year exile was complete, they returned and they rebuilt the temple. This is known as Zerubbabel's temple. And then we have Herod's temple, which really is Zerubbabel's temple, but with some major improvements. And of course, Herod's temple is the temple that Jesus visited and spoke much about. Then we have the church age, and I don't know if you thought about this as well, but the church is really God's temple, and this would be from Pentecost to rapture. So you can see my dispensational leanings there, but there you go. And then we have the tribulation temple, yet future, is not built. then that'll be destroyed, and Christ will come and return, reign for a literal 1,000 years. Again, you can hear my dispensational leanings there. And I wrote a paper on the 1,000-year millennial kingdom and why it is a literal 1,000 years. And if you're interested in that paper, just email me. I'll be happy to shoot it over to you and help you get some sleep at night. And the millennial kingdom temple, which is described by Ezekiel. And then, of course, we have the new heavens, the new earth, and that final temple where God himself is the temple. And then I do have a search for the various pagan temples that exist in the Bible. So right there, if you step back and take a deep breath, now you understand why I delayed this webinar a little bit. There is a lot of information to research. Very, very significant. So let's back up now and let's take a closer look at these and give you some helps how to do this. Now, we can't go super in depth, but in the personal book, which you'll get with the purchase of the webinar, you'll get all this data, all these searches and key verses. All right, so the heavenly temple, what biblical justification do we have to say that this exists? Well, Isaiah 14, Ezekiel 28, really give us some insights. Now, if you're familiar with these two passages, Isaiah 14, Ezekiel 28, there's references here to what we believe is Satan. How you have fallen from heaven, even though the context is speaking to someone like King of Tyre and so forth, this is really speaking directly to Satan. And what we discover in Isaiah 14:12, how you have fallen from heaven, O star of the morning, son of the dawn, you've been cut down to the earth, you have weakened the nations. But you said in your heart, and here's the 5 I wills. I'll raise my throne above the stars of God. I will sit on the mount of assembly in the recesses of the north. I will ascend above the heights of the clouds. I will make myself like the Most High. This is clearly speaking to Satan, and this is an indirect reference to heaven. But that's not the only passage. Ezekiel 28, Son of man, take up lamentation over the king of Tyre. So here God is speaking, the prophet Ezekiel speaking to the king of Tyre, but behind the king of Tyre is Satan. And it says, thus says the Lord, God, you have the seal of perfection. This clearly is not the king of Tyre. Full of wisdom and perfect in beauty. You were in the Eden. We're in Eden, the garden of God. All right, so that can't be king of Tyre. Every precious stone was your covering, the ruby, the topaz, the diamond, the beryl, the onyx, the jasper, lapis lazuli, the turquoise, the emerald, and gold, the workmanship of your settings and sockets was in you on the day that you were created, that you were prepared. Now, this is what Satan looked like before he fell, an amazing, majestic creature. And it's too bad he rebelled. Now, here's some insights. Look at this. You were the anointed cherub who covers, and I placed you there. You were on the holy mountain of God. You walked in the midst of the stones of the fire. So there's a reference to God's heaven, his throne room, where he dwells. Acts 7:44. Let me turn off my visual filters here. 1 second. Make it a little bit easier for us to read. And listen to this. Our fathers had the tabernacle of testimony in the wilderness, just as he who spoke to Moses directed to him to make it, here it is, according to the pattern which he had seen. In other words, that pattern is from heaven. So when we look at the tabernacle, we're getting an insight into the heavenly temple. And when we get to the book of Revelation, we have some very specific images that parallel. If we look at the book of Hebrews, Jesus entering into the Holy of Holies, again, a parallel between what was on earth taken from the pattern in heaven. Pretty amazing. And time frame, like I said, pre-Genesis 1:1 or Genesis 1:1. And this will remain the temple until the new heavens and new earth. And then God removes it. Pretty amazing. And the insight is this is God's eternal pre-creation or creation dwelling, the prototype for all earthly sanctuaries. Now, how do we find something like this? So having these passages are very helpful. For example, let's take Psalm 11:4. The Lord is in his holy temple. The Lord's throne is in heaven. So this is a direct reference to his holy temple. So we can right-click on holy temple. We can then locate something like throne or something like that. Let's right-click on throne. Here we go. Throne is thing. And we could choose throne, and we can do search Bible, all right? And that little search now finds every throne, but we need to narrow that down a little bit. So now we're going to include the second search since heaven. So we can go back here. And I just recommend right-clicking on the next word, because notice it's the Lord's throne is in heaven. That clearly tells us where this is. And so we locate heaven, click on the left, and choose Search Bible. And now we've got two separate searches. We just need to combine them. So I'm going to right-click and cut. And we can just close that search window down, go back to the previous search, and we're going to paste it in there. But before we paste it in there, we're going to click in the search box, add space, near space, then right-click and paste. And that will allow us to do a search where this idea of throne and heaven are close. Now, you might get a few false positives, but for the most part, these are going to reference God's throne in heaven. And these will give us insights into the heavenly temple. Very powerful. Now, this next search is absolutely insane, as you can see that there. And what's going on here? So let's go to Revelation 4. Now, in Revelation 4, we have this amazing scene. And by the way, I'm preaching through Revelation at my church. In fact, Revelation 4, at least the first 4 or 5, maybe 6 verses, I'll be preaching this Sunday. So this is near and dear to my heart. But we have some incredible descriptions here. A throne standing in heaven. We have these other objects around, the 24 thrones. This is pretty amazing. And so what I've done is I've kind of put this all together into a long, giant search. Let me just go ahead and run that. Now, what this will do is find other passages where we're referencing these items. And now we can read through these passages. You can see Revelation 4 and 5, which mention the throne and temple of heaven. We can get some more passages and therefore more details. So very powerful search. Definitely take advantage of that. Now, notice that these first two searches were searching the Bible. Let's take this one step further, though, and let's search our theology books. This is very important because theology books have aggregated, they've gathered the key verses. And if we can find a discussion on the temple, we're going to find some additional insights and, most importantly, more cross-references. So here's the search. Let me just go ahead and get it started. So you've all downloaded this before. It's the 07 Systematic and General Theology Learn Logos. If you haven't, you can download this with my other collections for free. Just go to Documents on the main menu, wait for both windows to refresh, then click Public. Again, wait for both windows to refresh. You can just type in Learn Logos. That would be the easiest way. And once both windows refresh, click on the first item in the list, go all the way to the bottom. There is a lot, and you just keep going until there's no more. Hold the Shift button down, click the last item, or just press Control-A on the PC, Command-A on the Mac, and you can select them all, and then click Add to your docs. If you want this specific one and no others, just put in 07, and then we can put in Systematic. That'll be close enough. And then you can find Systematic Theology. Just float your mouse looking for that title. If you can't see it, then just expand it. And there it is. We want this 07 right there. Last one in the menu, 07 Systematic and General Theology. Just click on that. Click Add to your docs. Wait for the blue bar to disappear. And now it's downloaded. Now to access that, you can go to yours. There it is. And you can click on it. And you can see the books that are included. Now, my list will be different than your list because there's going to be different resources in each of our library. But this allows you to search just these books. So if we run the search, and I'm going to click on book, you can see now the different resources that are being returned here. Now, we've got the temple and the church's mission. God dwells among us. Angels, what does it say about the heavenly host? Each one of these is going to talk about the temple. But here's a systematic theology. So we can click and expand this. And if we look at the titles, we'll certainly see some titles, and then we'll see the search results. And what I'm looking for is something that maybe says temple in the titles. If it doesn't, we got sanctuary for sinners. That's getting close. So that one didn't really have any, even though it had some hits. We might go to this one, the covenant creation, and so forth. There's some there. And we just keep looking. Now, if we actually go to library, it's going to sort them. And there we go, heavenly temple, the ways of our God approach to biblical theology. And if we click that, we're now taken to a book that's actually going to discuss the heavenly temple. There's our key cross-references and some additional ones. Now, when you find a passage like this, my advice is to create a passage list. So we'll click Documents, we'll click New, and we'll choose passage list. And we could put in temple or heavenly temple. All right, there it is. Or we could just put temples in the Bible. And you'll see why I'm doing it this way, a little more generic. And then what we want to do is basically the easiest way to do this is just right away go to print. So we're going to go to share. We're going to go to print export. Wait for the window to refresh. Scroll down. And what we want to do is select everything related. So here's the heavenly temple. And then we have, let's back up here and see if we can get some more information. So I'm going to check and uncheck that. And there we go. And so this is the heavenly temple. If we check the next box, all right, we got the heavenly temple, your synagogue. So this is kind of connected. We might want to just grab this whole section. Let's see what happens. In fact, we can right click and choose select all. And now we can look at the context. So here's Jesus in the temple. The church has a new temple, the heavenly temple, your synagogue, and a church. So we really just want to focus on the heavenly temple. So let me go ahead and uncheck these, and we'll get back to what we want. There's the heavenly temple. Now watch this. This is such a great little shortcut. Now that you have all the text, all you got to do is click copy to clipboard. And after those three dots go away, we can close this window. We can go back to our passage list. We can click add and choose from clipboard. And that will extract all the key verses. Now this works pretty good for the most part, but you notice it didn't pick up everything. So it just depends on how the book's been tagged. When this happens, the backup plan is just go ahead and manually select all the text. That's the easiest way to do it. And then we click add, choose selected text. Now we're getting all the verses. So it goes both ways. It just depends how these verses are tagged in the book. So be aware of these different options when you're doing that. And if you click sort, it'll get rid of all the duplicates. And I love that feature, and put them in canonical order. Now what we want to do is give a label. So we'll right click on this, and we're going to choose insert heading above, and we're going to put in heavenly temple. All right. And by doing it this way, we can make sure that when we insert more verses, we can separate those. So we might want to do is right click on this last one and choose insert heading below. And for now, we're just going to say other. All right. And that way, if you bring more in, you'll be able to move them around to their appropriate category. Very helpful. All right. So that's some strategic searches. Let's go to the next one, Garden of Eden. You probably never thought of this, but think about it. God's present with believers. That is the very nature of a temple. Now we got Genesis 1-3 with some key verses. So let me go ahead and click on Genesis 1:9. And we get this description, right? Let the waters below heavens be gathered into one place, and let the dry land appear. I include